Okay. So basically, what myself and the Beat Music Academy do um, about 2 weeks before we start a new semester is do a free workshop. We try to do it about Thursdays, usually or 7 p.m. Just everybody's out of work, and you guys can sit down and have time to kind of pay attention a little bit and see what this course can actually offer. Um, let's see, 1 second. Basically, I do a 12-week more or less a 101 type of course where I teach you guys all the basics from creating pretty much to adding your sounds into Ableton, creating drum loops, creating melody, EQing it, giving it compression, do what you want to do with it. That way you can move it out to the sequencer, teach you how to just build things in a way to where they're fluid. Um, really, I try to hone the music or hone the training to each person's style of making music. Like I'll ask you, what type of songs, which artists are a huge inspiration for you. Try to tune your learning to get you in that direction. But mainly what we do here is like a 4/4 kick electronic music. Um, I myself have a background playing a bunch of different instruments, but it seems to be this is the easiest for people to learn as far as creating, but to each his own. The last semester, I actually had a student who taught breath class, and it was more about the frequencies of the music that we're putting out and the chords they were hitting and the timing of those rather than drums, anything that sounds dancey or something you bob your head to. So it was a change for me, but it was fun. I'm learning as much as you guys are going to be learning, if you guys take this course. So yeah, we'll get started. Just a second. What time we got now? 7:07. We'll kind of jump into the workshop about 7:10. Okay, I'm beginning right now. Yeah. Okay. All right, so What has brought you guys to this workshop today? Are you interested in making a particular type of music? You just want to learn the program? Um, Damon?
I want to learn the program. I started using it. I usually make beats in my chord Triton and then record the the loops into the program. And I just build my songs like that.
You're looking for a new way to kind of build it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I usually record from my chord into the program, but I'm trying to learn how to do the instruments in the instruments inside of the program.
Oh yeah.
Because I have beats already made in my chord, and I'll just transfer them over to the program and then create my songs that way.
All right. And you kind of you want to know, like at this point, for what you've already recorded and stuff, how to import that, basically, how to record it live into Ableton.
No, I actually know how to do that. I want to learn how to use the
Gotcha.
instruments where you like that uh
Yeah. The
that
drum racks and
scale.
stuff. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, I give, in the course, I give you like 4 gigs of every one shot noise you can imagine. Let's see, I got it here somewhere. Um, so all these different, you mess with the Triton, you got the claps, combos, cymbals, you name it. Everything's categorized here. I have every 606, 707, 808, 909, you name it. It's all in here. Usable, and you can always preview this stuff just by clicking on it once, just to kind of figure out which one you want. That 4 gig pack that I curated, it'll come with the course. I'll show you how to install it and everything. The It's funny. So I've been using this program literally 17 years. Before that, I used some Pro Tools, a little bit of Cubase. And I actually started when it came to production using an MPC 1000 and a Roland Phantom keyboard. So
Okay.
everything was always had to be live sequencing. And I remember when I first started using the Pro Tools, I would spend all day trying to sequence it all out by turning the buttons on and off, and just getting one good live recording.
Right.
Such a rough way to do it, because I mean, you can't edit it after that. Sure, you can EQ it maybe, but definitely not ideal for making music in this day and age. So definitely try to, at least for people who've already started making music, at least get them knowledgeable on how to use drum racks. And we'll start, because that's how I usually start out these workshops anyways. We got a MIDI track here. What we do is we go over into this area here, your categories. We're going to go into the instruments with this one, and we're going to go ahead and click drum rack, because I want to get a nice empty drum rack. Now there you can go into the drums and literally do the same thing. If you like a set of drums that gives you a preset in drum rack, or sorry, in the drums category, you could just click on it once. Now it'll have all the separate sounds for you. This is not a loop. You're hearing a loop, but if I were to double click this, now you have all the sounds in here already lined up for you to mess with. Maybe we'll what was that? Was it the 505? Let's listen to something else. For keeping the genre on course, we'll stick with this techno one. Now does your Triton, does it connect via like USB to the computer?
Yes.
So you can use it as a MIDI
Yes.
tool.
Yes.
Excellent. So what happens when you load up a drum rack like that? Those are 16 separate sounds. Now you're on your lowest key, all your lowest keys here, the first 16 are going to reflect all that. Kind of like if you were just had a preset in um, a regular just non MIDI piano or electric keyboard or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So we created a preset. Now on this one real quick, I'm just going to go over to instrument racks and just go to drum rack to make a clean drum rack, just to show you guys how we would load up samples, your own samples, whether you import them, you download them for free, whatever you want to do. If you got the one-shot noises, here I have a whole bunch of different presets and sound packs, but we'll stick back with this the drum samples that comes with the course, and I'll just pick something. So I'll click it and I'll drag it. I'll bring it down to this first one. Now you can move them anywhere you want. You can put all the instruments you want in here. You can put the hi-hats, the claps, the toms, you name it. It's just a matter of dragging everything in here. Now, the next part I'll be showing you is how to actually, write it as MIDI. Have you learned a little bit of that yet? Okay, not a problem. So here's what we'll do. I'm just showing you, at least in a way that you can see part of what I teach is a hi-hat here. We'll just drag this one next to it. And I'll come back to this one after we go and look at this techno kit. So what happens when you create a drummer, this is your sound box. This track itself, just your sound box. Now, if it helps you to rename it to make it, something a little bit more memorable, like this is my drum rack 1 for particular type of music, you can go ahead and do that. You just right click, hit rename it whatever you want. We'll keep it as it is for now. Now that we're working in here, in order to write the MIDI, these things here are called scenes. All these little columns. What we'll do is we'll double click a scene. Now that we see we've created this own one measure loop. You can change it. You can make it as long as you want. You could make that drum loop the entire song. If you want to write your drums out for the entire song, you can. What do you say your song? What are you making? What kind of music?
Mostly hip hop and R&B.
So like 128 measures, maybe a little less. Yeah. So I mean, we'll switch that when we get to it, but I'm going to show you how to write the MIDI itself. Now, if you look on the left side, remember I showed you with the keyboard here, every one I hit, the little red line comes up on it. So you can actually see which one is what. So not only are you able to visually see the instrument that's playing, but you're able to know where it is on the keyboard. The importance of knowing that is because when you're going to write it, if you're not going to live play it out, like if you're not going to do it that way and record it live, which you can, there's no problem with that. It's not quantized though, but Ableton has this thing called Snap Grid, which will move it to the nearest, eighth of a measure or whatever it is that wherever you want it. The beauty of using MIDI as well is it's always changeable up until the time where you render it down to process it, send it out to your mastering guy. You can edit every little sound with MIDI, but you record that one sound or that one loop of drums with your keyboard or your MPC, whatever you're using, and you're kind of stuck with what you got. So there's definitely a benefit to using at least the majority of everything you're going to do in the program. So let's see, we're going to do kick dump. All right. So what you do, you double click. See, I can double click all over here. Basically, these are just commands. This particular stuff isn't sounds. Have you ever seen a music box? Little kid, the music box. It's got the little the wheel, the little pegs on it, the little nipples.
Mm-hmm.
Or when those notes hit those nipples, they play that certain key. Basically the same idea. These are just commands that you're writing, and you're writing them on the particular keys that represent each particular sound. So I'm gonna do this. I know timing a little bit, so I'm gonna just write these three. I'm only doing a kick right now, and I'm gonna hit the play button here. Now that's cool. Like, we'll stick with you know what? Before I get too crazy, let's change the tempo on it because that's a little too fast. All right, so tempo area is right over here. Now, I think with the new Ableton 11, if you click on it, it counts the timing of your clicks, like as if you're like trying to change the tempo yourself. The smartest thing to do is to make sure it's highlighted the area and then just type it in. You want to do like 90 BPM and just hit enter. But it's also a tap. So however fast you do it, it'll automatically change on its own. So writing it is definitely a little more helpful. I'm gonna hit the duplicate button, so it's gonna be twice the length. Right now we're working with one measure. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I duplicate it. You see one measure, two measures. The reason I did that is because I want to put that other kick. So that's going to be our first scene with our drums. Now down here, you can just keep creating scenes. And what this does is it'll give you a chance to not necessarily need to build out your drums all at once. If you are messing around with your track, and let's see, for at least we have the kick and the clap here. What I'll do, I'll go ahead and rename it kick clap. You can't hurt yourself by labeling things, color coding things. You can only, train your brain to know and visually be able to see things and work things out a lot faster if you label things. So kick clap's going to be the first one. What I'm going to do, instead of just creating a new one and having to create this over and over again, I might duplicate this. That way now they're both the same thing. The reason I'm doing that is because this next one, maybe we'll add hi-hats to it. So for now, I will go ahead and just rename it. Just rename it hats for now. We know what we're doing. So now that we're on this one, we have to hit play. Change the velocity on them so they don't sound so robotic. And what I'll do, I'll highlight all of them. You can copy and paste just like you normally would with any texting or editing, or you can hit Command D on an Apple. It would be Control D for duplicate. I'm just going to duplicate all the way across. Now see how the velocity has changed in these four, which I duplicated, so it's a complete pattern of different velocities for that hi-hat. Now, you could do it any way you want. You can keep them all loud. It's up to you. It's really about you putting in the human element to making it feel live, less robotic, just give it its own groove. Now, this whole section over here, you can create grooves and timing, something that sets it off a little for a 1/16 or a triplet. But that's something I teach in the course, but we're not going to get to today because I'm going to lose you guys if I try to get to that right now. It's really not necessary. So now that we've created a hi-hat for this particular scene, we can go ahead and create a new one. Now we're going to duplicate this scene itself. Maybe I'll just say toms. We're going to add toms to it. Now, the reason why I'm doing it this way is so that you can have access and utilize your loops as you've created them. Now, I'm sure you are thinking at least in a linear sense, so left to right. You want your track to start telling a story. Obviously, we're just doing these weird little loops. The reason why I start with the course teaching this way, because I want you to get knowledgeable with MIDI, understand how MIDI works, understand the capabilities that you have, and you use your own brain to just click every button, turn every knob, fuck your track up, learn as much as you can just by messing with it without already have written out the sequence of it. So what's going to happen eventually when we get a few items in here and we're really happy with what we got, we're going to start laying out, give it some structure. So let's see, for the first kick clap here, second, I am going to click and hold. I'm gonna hit the tab button. The tab button is gonna bring it over. Now we're on our tech. I just would call this. Just call this tech hop, whatever. And we know we recorded, at least for these measures, there are 1 measure, 2 measures. As you can see, it dictates it here as well. 1 measure, 2 measure, that's 1 loop. Now, it's not like you have to copy and paste these things. The beautiful things about loops that you make in session view, which is what this vertical column screen is the fact that you can just get to that bracket and just drag it as far as you want. It'll keep looping over and over again. Now, we're doing hip hop, we're doing something a little shorter. We'll go ahead and maybe do the whole 4 measures. Now we're on the 5th measure. Say we wanted to add the hi-hat to it. So I'm going to click and hold and hit tab button. And now not only can we see the loops, but we can see the individual sounds involved. So now if we look here, we just hit play. You can see it, you know when it's coming in. Now I'm going to go ahead and maybe just add toms real quick, and we'll kind of move on to the next thing here. So let's hear what we got. All right. Now I want to add that long symbol, but I can't have it hidden every 2 measures. So what I'll do with this 3rd one, that's going to be toms, I'm going to, and yes, we're adding crash, but I also want to add toms to it. So we'll do like toms symbol or something. But so it's on the 1st measure here. So when I play it, but if I were to keep it that length, it's going to loop too often. So what I want to go in here and I want to duplicate the length of this one too. So maybe it hits every 4 measures. I delete that one. So now we have a longer length before it comes back to the beginning to get that symbol in there. Honestly, it might not even be long enough. Let's do one more. We'll duplicate one more time. It's always doubles. Your measures will always go, when you're in the MIDI section creating scenes, it will always go 1, 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, and so on. That's what duplicating is, but it's important to know that music is just as much math as it is melody and feeling and all that. So I created another duplicate to make it a full 8 measures long, and I deleted that one so that now I know that this symbol is only going to hit every 8 measures. Now, before we do anything else, let's see if we can add a tom in there, a bongo. All right, we're changing toms to cymbals. Rewrite it. All right, so if I just stick with the 1 here and hit play, and just go ahead and that whole 1 measure loop, highlight the whole area, hit duplicate. Now it's all the way across. Let me zoom back out. Now we have it written all the way across. Now, say the sound is not the way you want it. The beautiful thing about Ableton and the drum racks are you can always go in and modify the sound. So this sounds too much, too loud, too long. This area here is your sample box. What we're going to do with this sample, you see how it bleeds out all the way over there? We don't need all that. Let's go ahead and shorten that sample. We'll start just so it's noticeable. See, it stops like that. Too abrupt. Let's bring it back. That's a little better, but let's give it a softer curve. Fade out, it's going to give you a curve on it. So it's going to drop the volume down on the sample to make it shorter. Not only can you do the fade out, you can do fade in. Now you can do this for all your drums to really fine tune and make your sound exactly how you want it to be, which has always been a plus for me, because I don't like to use references when it comes to music. I always just like to create as I feel. So the beauty about the sound box as well is you can transpose it, change the pitch on it. You can go into the control section. You could pan it. You want to pan it all the way left, all the way right. You can even do a random pan a little bit. So you hear it kind of randomly shifts from left to right. So a lot of customization you can do in Ableton Live. Let's see. We'll stick with a smaller random pan. I think I'm going to shorten this even more. Yeah, we'll stick with that. Now, I want to add this new loop that we've created onto this screen. You can always change between screens, your sequencer and your session view, just by hitting tab. If you have multiple screens, you can also go into the view option and turn on second window. A second window, you just have to drag it in properly to make sure it's where you want it to be. But try to show them both the same. Oh, I can't. You can see that you have both of them. You can drag the other one. Come on. You can drag the other one to the other screen if you wanted to. That way you never have to switch between them, and you can go ahead and just drag your samples, your loops and stuff from one to the other. It does use a little more memory, when doing it, but I would say it's not usually a huge deal. If you're using at least 4 gigabytes of RAM with Ableton, you should be good. If you've got at least 100 gigabytes of room space, I mean, you should be good. You could have 16, 17, 20 tracks laid out, all processing at the same time, doing what they're doing. And Ableton's pretty good about finding space for every one of those. If you're only using 4, I've done that plenty of times in my life. After you sequence everything, automate everything, you may get a little bit of lag or an issue with the buffer. That's not an issue either, because you can always change the latency of the buffer to fit your needs, buffer size. So if you've created something and it's starting to lag, slow down, kind of like skip a little bit, try to change the buffer size. Whatever your computer's sweet spot is for whatever it's processing is going to be this area right here. So that's going to be under audio, buffer size. So we'll go back to cymbals. We'll go ahead and drag that over. That was a full 8 measures. So now we can see we had the kick clap, what we added here, the hats here, cymbals here. Change them anytime you want. If you want to put it to like intro, whatever's best for you, remembering your track and being proficient at using Ableton to create music. So at this point, what I want to do, I'm going to loop what we have here. By dragging this bracket, these parameters here, you can stretch it out. We'll just do the 16 measures. Now it's going to keep looping over and over, 4 measures being most simplistic, 4 measures a little bit more, and then 4 measures for everything at the same time. You can build as many loops as you want, but for the sake of time, the time constraint we have here, it's probably wise that we don't stick too long on drums. But so we kind of covered how to create scenes, as well as double clicking to write MIDI. If you're using the keyboards, as long as this record button is activated, you will be able to play your drums Oh man, I gotta add that. Hold on. All right, we're going to add it. Yeah, we'll add its symbols. So there. I'm gonna take the kick out. I'm gonna take kick out when that happens there. Okay, we got that. I'm gonna go ahead and replace the one I've already created over here. And when you see this area grayed out, any track that is grayed out is because you're using a scene that's playing, highlighted on the left side here, showing that it's only used launching clips right now on that particular track. The way to stop that is to go ahead here, this button right here, this returns everything to the arrangement. So if I click that button here, I'm going to do it after I switch so you can see grayed out. The button's here now. Now we're playing again on this track, whatever's on the sequencer. Now I didn't loop this particular parameter yet. I need to do that. In order to do that, to kind of just loop a certain area that you want to continue working on, you're going to go up here. I mean, pretty self-explanatory that this is a loop. So you just click that. Now it's going to play over and over. It's not going to just go past it into nothing. Any questions on this area?
No,
Is this helpful so far?
it is.
Good. That's super important. I mean, this 12-week, and it was an 8-week course we did, but now it's going to be 12 weeks. Super important for me that I get the learning across rather than just getting you out of the course. I mean, I'm very passionate about using Ableton and teaching people how to use it as well. So within the course, we also have a WhatsApp group chat that's always available to ask questions, as well as during that time that you're in within the course, we do like once a week, we do like a 1 to 2 hour session if you need it. Go in, we do a Zoom meeting like this. We will work on your track, or I can create a new one from scratch with your ideas, and we kind of we bring your understanding up to the week, the timeline of the week that you're learning. You know, just so that you don't fall behind with what you're learning. Now there's 8 videos to watch. They're all hour long. They all come in blocks, you know, from start to finish. And what I'm basically trying to do here now is to run through all those videos very quickly. But we've extended it to the 12-week course because we used to give one video a week for 8 weeks. Everybody works at their own pace. I think we're gonna give you guys the block of 8 videos with the assignment videos, the tips and tricks videos, and you work at your pace. You have 8 weeks to ask questions, do what you need to do. I answer anything I can. If I can't do it, Valentina, who's who runs the Beat Music Academy, is more than happy to answer any questions that she can. Okay, so we kind of got this little drum beat going. Now, if you were to say next for, because it's either we're going to start MIDI next or synths next or bass. What do you want to start next? You want to do bass? You want to do synths? Which one is always going to dictate the other, and it's always interchangeable. But you want to do?
I would say bass.
Okay. All right. So we're going to clean this up. We don't need this drum rack now because we're running with this one. Remember, in order to get to a preset drum rack, you'll go into drums, and all the different sounds are here. Oh, 1 second. Oh, there we go. I had to double click it. And so when you double click on the drums, all your presets and stuff will be here. Instrument rack, to get a clean drum rack, in order to put your own sounds in there, you'll go to instruments, use drum rack. Okay, now for the next spot with using bass, we'll do the same thing. Instruments, and we'll go instrument rack. Instrument rack, we can go ahead and open up that drop down, and now we have basses to choose from. With Ableton and any DAW software, there's plugins, VSTs. You could buy or download free plugins that have their own bass sounds, their own instruments. I think you guys were logged on here before when I actually had A&A up and running. Now, I'm not going to show you this because this is outside of Ableton, but this is its own synthesizer. Basically, it's got its own sounds in here, access to do whatever you want. You can manipulate every single oscillator in here. Just what I tell my students is turn every knob. You got to learn what everything does, because if I were to sit and teach every little thing, which I don't even know every little thing, how tedious every little knob and stuff is. I know the majority of everything I see on here, but it's really about you wanting to learn more about your sounds and what you're using. So many different websites to download sounds with, but we're going to stick with Ableton library for now. So we'll go back to instruments, make sure we have this MIDI track highlighted. In order to create new tracks, by the way, probably the simplest way is to right click. Audio track is for adding waves or MP3s, whether it's one-shot noises, drum loops, vocals, whatever you want to do. And MIDI is obviously for using MIDI. Now, when you're creating when you make a hip hop music, you're also going to be recording vocals and stuff.
No, I'm just doing the beats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but everything can be done in here, manipulated in here, recorded live in here. I know probably the majority of what you've seen, if not all of it, as far as music software, you're seeing this screen, the sequencer. You see it just playing left or right, but without really getting to know how MIDI works, you're too focused on just making a track, or than really like pushing the limits and boundaries of your knowledge and skills when it comes to making music. So like for me, it's super important. Some of my students, it's a little less, so I try to push them into the fourth or fifth week of learning how to sequence, instead of just learning the whole time. All right, let's see. Back here, instrument rack open again. Bass, let's choose some bass noises. And while we're actually choosing a bass, we'll go ahead and listen to the track so we kind of get a better feel, maybe match something up. Well, when you mess up, make sure you hit Command Z. Command Z undoes everything, because I just accidentally turned my drum rack into that synthesizer. It was no good. But now we're back to normal. All right, let's find the sound. Like I said, don't forget to hit Command Z if you're not clicked on the right thing. Make sure track 2 is where we want to go with this. So we double click from there. Now we have the bass set up as track number 2. What we'll do here, make sure if you want to play your Triton with any external MIDI with Ableton, you have to make sure the record button's on, and turn this one off because it's going to play both the drums at the same time. So you turn it off. All right. So I went down an octave to get even lower on the keyboard, And I'm going to find that note just by scrolling down. Come on. There it is. I'm going to write it right here. Din din. Duplicate it. It might be, depending on what you're listening on, it may be a little hard to hear, but I'll go ahead and turn up the filter on it. Resolution is going to give it that real tweaky acid sound. I don't want that, so I'm going to kind of just click back on it to look at what we're working with. Now you can create MIDI that's in a 16th. That's a, let me see, hold on. Oh yeah, we're using 16th. We're in a 16th grid. So what that means is every measure has 16 lines. So you can write your MIDI, and it's going to be 1/16 notes. If you were to change this area by right-clicking, going 1/8, you're going to see there's only 8 lines now. The MIDI notes will be longer, and you can put less in the sequence of it. Now, same thing in 132, so a lot faster. If you're doing triple hi-hats or you want to switch your grid so that you can just double-click on those little boxes and get stuff like that. So you don't have to try to create one in the wrong spot and then drag it over, because it's more a pain in the butt than anything. But we'll go ahead and skip back to 1/16, and we're going to extend it back out to the bass we're going to use. Now, with Triton, you know what sustain is? Release. So sustain is kind of how long after you hit the note it's going to fade out. If your release is really short, you're just going to make doom. But if you have a longer release, it's going to go doom. So it's going to fade out. Now, you don't have to, I'm telling you that because you don't have to write and drag and make it a long note like this. Because you can change the release. So I'm just going to hit the notes so you can see what I'm talking about. So it's a medium release, short. Now it's just like a little blip as I'm hitting it. If I go all the way long, that's release. So playing it with what we're doing, kind of. Now, what I'm going to do from here, we're going to move this bass, 808 bass, over dragging, and we bring it down to the next one. We're just going to play it along with everything, so that we're not going to hear some parts of the sequence and not others. It's great. I have a fat finger, so I right click too much. It's grayed out. So what we do is we hit this to return everything to arrangement. So now everything that's playing is on here. The next thing I'm going to show you real quick so that you can see how you can modify and change the timing. Basically make your song less boring just by writing a little automation. Now, what automation is you changing what an instrument will do simply by writing different parameters for it. You can do that it's super easy to do that. And I have to say, you really want to do it, because if your song's just playing and yeah, you're just adding stuff in and out, it's going to be less dynamic. It's going to somehow feel robotic and not be as cool. So what I'm going to show you how to do here, this button right here, which will a lot of times be set on any new project you have if you left your last project with automation on. It's these two different diagonal arrows here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
This arrow here. I'm going to click it. Okay, now we have our automation lanes. Keep your eye on what we're seeing here, because if I were to move over and click a different one of these knobs, now this is the module on top, is the 808 drifter. I'm going to click filter, and now this line represents the filter. So if I were to click and hold the line, or even just see what, okay. But for this, we want to go ahead and mess with the release like I was showing you before. These are all different effects that you want to modify and work with in your track to just give it just so much more life, filling in spaces and just making that 2-measure baseline seem like it's playing out for 16 measures. So what I'll do is make sure the release is clicked. Good, we're good. We can see that there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and extend this. I'm going to kind of listen a little bit. All right, so this one right here, what I want the release to hit a little longer. So what I'll do, all you gotta do is click to where you have a point of automation. Click for the end of the point of automation. We'll go ahead and click in the middle. We'll drag it up. Now we're writing an audio effect basically for our MIDI. So if we were to play it from here, you're going to hear how it's short and it's going to play long. See, if you hear this right here, it's short. But if we go back, maybe we'll do it here. And it's beautiful thing is with Ableton, you can literally just copy and paste. If you worked on 16 measures of doing this, then all you gotta do really is kind of copy and paste. So like that. You know what? I'm gonna drag this up a little bit here so it's got a little more play. It's really about just adjusting it to the way you like it. And go ahead and move this up. All we're doing is messing with the release. So we're kind of just turning the knob. What you see there, the difference is like you going like this with it. Do it. So we've done up to 8 measures. So we're on the 9th measure here. Definitely want the last one to play out long. So we'll just go ahead and do that into that. Now, if I only want to do 8 measures of it, there, click, highlight, and make sure when you're highlighting, you touch this top bracket here. This is the only way it's actually going to copy what you're trying to do. We'll just actually duplicate it. We'll hit Command D. Now we have it here as well. You can tinker with it as much as you want, play with it how you like. Don't go blind. And yeah. Let's see what other sounds we have in here. Actually, before I move on, you'll see that on the release, since we have points of automation, anything that's automated is going to have that little red dot there. Shows that you've actually written a point of automation. And if you were to change this, Watch what happens. It goes white. That means you've now knocked it out of, basically knocked it off the track, and wherever it's sitting now is where it's going to, where the effect is going to play at. The only thing you got to do to remember to get back, what popped up when you did that, this little orange button here, that's re-enable automation. So if I were to click and mess up my automation, no problem, back to the orange. I always say, and I think I stressed this in week 5, mind the orange buttons, because if you're over here and you hit play on this and you think you got it going on, but this is grayed out, you're like, I don't know what I did. You're okay. Mind the orange buttons. And just make sure everything is playing where you want it to play. If you're on the sequencer, make sure that orange button is not activated, or else you're going to be going crazy. Like, oh, I'm hearing something that shouldn't be sequenced that way. It's because it's probably playing from this area over here. All right. Real quick, I'm going to kind of blend in with what we're learning by showing you how to sidechain. Oh, I want to do this. All right, so there's multiple ways to learn how to sidechain. Basically, sidechaining and compression is when that kick hits, the bass goes underneath. What I'm going to do here quickly, I'm going to duplicate this, and the only thing I'm going to have written, and you can do all this editing here, you don't have to go back to the other screen. I'm just going to have that. So this is just the kick clap. I'm actually going to I'm going to call it ghost kick. Now, we're not done with that yet. We want to double click. Everything we have written in here, no good. All we want is the kick. So we'll go ahead and delete whatever else was in that particular MIDI area. And I'm going to go ahead and rename this one Ghost Kick. And just for good measure, I always turn it white, because if there was such thing as ghost, I believe they're white. It's just kind of a helpful tool to get you to remember what you're messing with. Now, the ghost kick is never actually going to be heard, but as long as it's playing and it's active, you can sidechain and compress things underneath it. I'll show you how we're going to do that. We're going to go ahead and turn it off. We don't need it on. It's already playing. And back to our bass. Okay, we're on the bass. We're going to go ahead and go in audio effects. Compression. And don't worry, I mean, it's a lot of information, but I'll send you guys the video once it renders. You could watch what I've been doing this whole time. All right, so with compression, there's a lot to it. You know, when you first start with Ableton, you're gonna be like, there's 1,000 buttons. But by the end of the course, I feel like I'm gonna get you to make it so you only see 100 buttons. It's not, the buttons are going to disappear, but a lot of things do the same thing. Tax, releases, you know, sustains. Here's what we're going to look at. Now watch this meter as the track plays. That's our kick right there. Now, what we want to do is basically slam the threshold on it. Threshold's going to basically say, hey, whenever the kick's happening, that ghost kick, because we're sidechained to it, I'm going to tuck you underneath. And depending on how fast we get the release, this is going to be how much it comes back. But you'll see, or you'll hear it as I'm doing it. All right, I'm going to slam it all the way. All right, it's all the way down now. You can't really hear it, but you can see just what's happening in the module, the audio effect, because now the threshold's down, it's not allowing anything to escape. What if I was to bring it up a little bit? Drop the release a little bit so it comes back faster. So what this basically does, it says, hey, kick takes priority. Because I mean, you know, when you're playing your music, you know, the kick has got to hit. You know, so if you have the bass powering over the track with the kick, it's going to muddy. It's going to be a frequency lock. It's going to sound distorted or phasing. This basically takes care of all that by saying, hey, bass, you take second priority, you come in underneath the kick. See how it's happening here. Because as the bass is hitting, it dips underneath with the kicks. And that is, in a nutshell, how you sidechain. All right. Just make sure you always turn the ghost kick off, because if you have that on with your regular kick, I mean, you might blow your speakers or your eardrums. All right, that was a quick rundown of what we learned there. We learned how to write a little bit of bass. You know, it's very simple. You know, just like with your drums, you can actively build as many different types of loops as you want, put them wherever you want. Sky really is the limit with Ableton, and nothing has to be set in stone. If you add one little sound, melody somewhere, and now like maybe your hi-hats aren't hitting the way you want, no problem. You go in, you just move your hi-hats around. It's forever changeable. Like I said, until you hit that render, send it out to the mastering guy, you can manipulate it every little inch and dynamic of every bit of it, these tracks, because Ableton is just that in depth. All right, let's go ahead and we hit what I do. I usually hit Command Shift T or Command T. That either creates a MIDI or a audio track, but you can right click and insert audio or MIDI tracks here the same way. Okay, so now let's maybe put a little bit of melody, whether it's a one shot kind of chord, whatever it is. We're just gonna, I just run with it. I mean, when I hear something, you know, music is expression, how you feel at any given moment, right? So let's go with that. We'll make sure we have the record button on, and we'll go back just like we did with the bass. We'll go into instruments and we'll minimize the bass, and let's maybe find a different type of sound. We can go synth miscellaneous. Maybe we'll go synth keys. Let's hear what everything is. It's also important to know that just because you hear something in the preview one way, it does not at all mean that is exactly how it has to sound. These, just like I showed you with the outside VST with different releases, attacks, the oscillations of how you're shaping every bit of the sound, you can do that with the majority of these sounds as well in here. So remember, when you're listening to sounds, you're like, oh man, I only got the Ableton sounds. Believe it or not, it's however deep you can actually hear how you can manipulate that sound, which may sound crazy right now, is actually beautiful because you can do so many different things to it. Kind of like that. I'm going to go with that Arctic Shadow. All right. And now we have the record button on that track. Now we can mess with that sound. Let's turn it down a little bit. And, you know, before we even write anything, we could play along with the beat and listen to what the different filter effects do. Just like I said, don't be afraid. Just turn all the knobs, push all the buttons, have your hands next to Command Z, because all you have to do is hit undo. If you mess something up, just Command Z, undo it. So let's see. We'll go with a simple arpeggiation, which is arpeggiation is you know, any given amount of notes that's going to repeat at the same timing of the last note. So I know my sounds were these notes. I'm just going to find that first one here. Holding it down, dragging, looking. There we go. We found it. Second one. It might be timing, might be there. And the third one's next to it. And then one higher. Okay, I know those are the notes. Is the timing right? Let's check. We'll drag it down and just loop this. All right. So as we're playing with the notes here, just like we did with the release on the bass, now we are confident in knowing that, hey, if I turn that knob as I was just playing it, I can really build a nice emotional, something grooving rather than it just being the same thing over and over again. Nothing worse than a sound that just plays exactly the same the whole time. Unless it's like a vocal shot, kick, and a lot of your drums. If it's got a melody to it, man, give it some love. Make it longer with the notes. This one comes preset with echo. This is a reverb level. Now we started the attack later. If you could go back in your minds and remember how I showed you what the attack is for, it's also the same thing as what you would call the fade in. So we're back on our drum rack here, and here's your fade in, the fade out. And you could change the length of your sample, but you can also do something. This would be basically known as your release. So instead of it playing all the way through, you're basically tapering it down. Same thing happens with the fade in or the attack. This is how you remember. This is how you make 1,000 buttons and knobs seem like 100. If once you remember that they do the same thing: fade in, fade out, attack, release. So the attack, it's good that there's a visual for this too, because going back to it, now I know attack, just like fade in, it starts later. So if we were to play this hi-hat noise, start it here. Fade in. Oh, we're not even using that one on. 1 second, sorry. All right, the hi-hats, if I were to start it later, you can't even hear the hi-hat now, see? Same thing as attack. So if we were to hear this playing later, imagine that triangle, or like that angle going up, and then the release is the angle going down. Now, if you want to really go in there and change your sound, it's got some cool things in it, but you want to, remove certain items. This is all going to look like hieroglyphics to you until you really mess with them. So if we were to hear if I was to change some settings here, not knowing what they did, that's okay. I keep my hand near Command Z to undo it. See it. So this is a feedback setting. And I'll just undo it. If I didn't like it, just hit Command Z as many times as you need to get back where it was. For this one, this looks like it's a high pass filter, which means, have you ever seen the frequencies where the left side of your frequencies, I'm going to show you in a moment, work from low, where your sub bass kicks everything, move over, and then your high end. So a high-end high pass filter is basically going to take the high ends, the tingies, the white noise, the hi-hat sound out of any given instrument. Even if it doesn't have that sound, it has a range of frequencies. I'll show you right now by going to audio effects, and I'm going to go to EQ8. Okay, now we're looking at this right here. Just by putting my mouse over here, I can see decibels, frequencies. I can see all this stuff that I need to know going lower to higher. See, 13 hertz, 15 hertz, going all the way up through the middle. You know, and in this course, I teach you how to isolate your frequencies to make sure everything you can be pushed to its limit and pop the way it needs to, so that you can make your song sound as dynamic as possible. We'll minimize it here and put it back over here. This one, I want to make sure I have a low pass filter so that you can hear what we're doing, as well as a high pass filter on the end. So high pass filter like this, same thing you're going to see here. They're just tapering off or tapering up. I'm going to go ahead and manipulate this high pass filter on the EQ. Now I just swept it all away by moving the frequency. Now, if I were to click on the low pass filter, EQ, you can do that. You can do that with an auto filter if you've ever DJ'd and you mess with the, you know, the DJ effects. I mean, this is 101. Same thing here, auto filter. If I were to switch it to the low pass filter. So every sound doesn't have to sit in the track as it was created. You can chop off a little bit of the low end on things, especially like synths that don't need to be in the bass frequency range. So if I were to show you, double clicking, this is our bass, and I'll put an EQ8 on this. We have one set up right here, pass, okay. I'm gonna move it before my compression because I don't want effects happening after the compression. I want everything to slam and stay within the compression parameters. And your audio effects all read left to right. So if I was to add an echo effect on the right side of my compression, well, that's happening after you're doing processing of compression. So it's going to not be a slave to the baseline compressing under the kick like we've set up the compression. So here, I want to just look and see with the EQ8 on our bass. Let's just see what the range is on it. So typically, I think the human ear can't really hear much below 30 hertz. Now, if you're bumping 18-inch subwoofers in a club, you got a PA system, I mean, it's going to shake the ground. But for the most part, if you're listening in your car without heavy bass, just stock system, and you have it set all the way up to here, this whole area is kind of just bleeding into nothing. It's just extra frequency that doesn't need to be there because whether you can hear it or not, it's taking up space. So that's with this note that we're hitting, it looks like the meat and potatoes is right about here. So realistically, we don't need anything really lower than that. And as far as the high pass goes, the high EQ, you know, the resonance sound of it, the high end, unless we are using the filter to make it sound like that, which we can do. You see how high it goes here? It's bleeding out. It doesn't do much more than that. So we can change our frequency range back to here. So even if we want to bring the filter cutoff all the way up, it's really not affecting the sound, but we're leaving now more room for our hats and everything else in our project to utilize these areas. So if I wanted to keep it and not change the filter, then I would move that high end frequency, the high pass frequency here, Just keep it right about there. And you do your own EQing and learning and seeing what you're doing, and with your headphones on, really hearing when you hear that minor change in it and you're like, oh, that's too much. Okay, just back off it a little bit. That's all you gotta do. So okay. Now let's see if we can put this sound together and kind of lay it out so we can move on to the next thing. I'm going to back in this area. All right. Now I can't get my sound, each note to sound any shorter because my release is down. So what I'm going to actually do, I'm going to highlight all of them. And I'm going to highlight the whole area and I'm going to shorten it. So as we're listening to it, I'll make it as short as I want to, because when I'm in here, I can just turn the release back up. But that way I can kind of give it that little stutter sound to it, as if it's transitioning to, like, you're going from your verse into your chorus. So I'm going to just call this ARP. And I'm going to go ahead and I will click and hold, hit the tab button, and I'll move it here. Now, the way I'm setting everything up, we're just doing a looping, basically allowing you to see what we're doing here. But by showing you what we did as far as create loops and move them over, so we have one here, more progressive one here, and one that's like fully what we're doing. You could do it across your entire track with all your different sounds, so you have transitions. We'll get to that by showing you this. I'm gonna make this 32 measures now. I can either do it separately, or I can highlight all the way up to here and drag them. All right. And let's say, yeah, I wanted this ARP not to come in until a certain part of the track happens. 40 seconds is a bit of a long stretch, but we're not going to play it all the way from there. But we're going to mess with this area right here so that we can kind of give it that play into what we're going to do. So all right, so this last section of these drums here, I'm going to manipulate them a little bit. I just highlight it and I move it away until it created its own bracket. Okay. Looking at it now, I can double click and look at what we have going on. And for that last section, I'm going to go ahead and highlight all the hi-hats. I'm going to get rid of them so that when we hear all right. Might be a little too short, but I'll go ahead and expand it. All right. Go here, change the release. All right. So 17th measure, let's say, before I was saying, your measures are more or less going to go double. They're going to double 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So like, it's really how you want to map out your music and the way you sequence it. But yeah, coming up to the end of our 16th measure, when I know it's going to make a good change, I want it to sound like it's ready to change. And by doing that, you are automating and manipulating every loop that you already have to go into the next section. So what we've created here, and we got rid of the hi-hats, and this is going to be our new section. I'll even change the color on it so we know. All right. All right. So I want this to come in a little bit cleaner, kind of have it fade in. So I'm gonna, during this last measure, I'm gonna have this play, but we're going to manipulate it or um, automate it to kind of fade in slowly. So we're on the Arctic Shadow plugin, which is the sound we're using. All right, now I know it's moving. I can see it moving. We're good. Let's see what happens if I start it down here and I want to manipulate it, kind of have it go up the hill so the frequency goes up with it. And maybe not all the way, but here I want it to play fully here. So and with the release, I wanted to shorten the release. Let's see what happens. Maybe we'll bring it back in. Automating is very important. Too much. We'll work into it. Maybe we'll go. And then back into it. And you just keep dragging your loop and messing with your automation as you're building it. That way you don't have to go back to it. I mean, depending on all the instruments and sounds you utilize, you're probably going to end up changing things here and there, but at least you have something you can listen to over and over again, and it's not going to be super repetitive. My motto is if you can listen to it for 6 hours at a time, somebody should be able to listen to it for 6 minutes. Just that much dedication is what you honestly need. Okay. Maybe we'll mess with the filter frequency again. Maybe we'll jack it back down. We'll go back to release. Okay. Now it's just a matter of, how much work you want to put into it. You can always do it later. If you're hell bent on just kind of building, we could go ahead and add another synth next, or we can kind of say, hey, my drums are cool. I've kind of made this intro into what we're going to do. Now maybe it's time to add a little bit more cymbals, more drums. Now, you don't need just one particular drum channel. You can do as many drums as you want, as many sound synths as you want. This is a particular sound pack. So let's go ahead and we're going to, right next to it, we're going to create a new MIDI track. Like I said, you can right click and either MIDI or audio, but I go ahead and I do it with the keyboards. It's faster for me. And let's go back to our drums. Let's find something else while we're listening to it. See if we can kind of add a little bit of spice to it. That'd be a ripoff if I used all of that. It sounds kind of cool though. Let's see if I can utilize any of that stuff in there. So I'll double click to create the kit on there. Remember, if you accidentally created on a different track, messed up all your sounds, Command Z to undo. So one thing I do is I'll repeat myself a lot in the course. That way it'll like little things like that, just to get you to remember. Command Z, why mind the orange buttons, stuff like that. And we will go ahead and hit the record button. That way we're only using the sounds. Second. All right, we're down here. Let's just hear what we have. That sounds pretty fun. So that's this one right here, ARP Lazy Down. Now I want that to hit and play once, but definitely not every measure. So we go back in here and we'll duplicate longer. Maybe what we add for this one, we'll do a 4 measure loop. And we only want it to hit one time throughout that, so we delete the rest. Hit play. See what else we got. All right, we're gonna do with this. Now, I'm going to first kind of create 8 of these because this is gonna be a fast ticking hat. So we'll hear like this. But so that we don't get ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and change the velocity on a couple of them so it's not just a robotic, monotonous, ticking velocity. We're just kind of moving some of the levels of it. Do it random if you want. All right. And we're going to add more to it. We're going to go ahead and do like triplets with it. But first, we're going to, let's create 2 of them. Shorten the loop so we can mess with them. All right. Now remember I said we right click and we're going to change the grid to a 1/32 fixed grid so that now we have the 32 lines in here per every measure. All right, I'm gonna get rid of this one. I'm gonna double click these 2. So now you can put them wherever you want, and we'll extend it all the way back out to the 8 measures. Or was it 8? Let me do 4. And let's go ahead and highlight the whole thing. Hit Command B to duplicate. Oh, I do one more. Sorry about that. And you can always change it up in any area that you want. Oh, with the last 4 to go here. So we'll listen to it now. We'll keep it the same throughout we'll just do 2 different measures of it for now, and we'll Command D, we'll just repeat it there so that I don't have to rewrite what I did here over here. So now we're good with this first sequence. So we'll call it like a fast hat. I'm going to say boo because it's like a scary Halloween sound in there. So I'm just call it fast hat boo. Whatever helps you remember, whatever. You can do 1 sound per scene if you want. These are all scenes. You can do 1 sound, change it up every time. But remember, if you do something completely different on this one, then you only have this 1 track here to add them. So if you did a loop with 1 here and change a different one here, it's going to be 2 different sets of loops. So if you're going to change up what you're doing from one to another, just duplicate and let them both run consecutively next to each other. And then you can write it out differently, maybe rename them and give them different colors. It'll be helpful. Right now, I'm going to delete this because we're not using it yet. And we're going to go ahead and click and hold, hit tab, and we're going to put it right where we want to here on the second area. We'll just lay it down for that now. I may add a little bit more that's going to create a new loop over here, but for now, we do one thing at a time. Don't put the cart before the horse. Is that right? Yeah, the cart before the horse. All right, so now we're going to listen to what we've done so far in this set of measures, going from 13 to 33. The hi-hats out here. Going to, he's always changing, always automating do, because the more I listen, the more I want to move some things around. So in this last section of, I want to get rid of this first clap at least. And I'm going to listen to them both. This is the solo, by the way, guys. The S button that turns blue, solo your tracks. You can just turn your other tracks on and off. This is the track on off power. Now I want to just hear this cymbal, the first drum set that we made, and just the bass, because I want to give it a little bit cooler dynamic. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to change the release on this section here to be longer. In order to do that, I double click on the track. We go back to the automation for the release. Okay. And we'll go ahead and allow the whole thing to kind of play out with a longer release. Maybe I'll stop it right here. Get rid of those rides. All right, now let's unsolo the track so we hear everything together again. Okay, I don't want this to play so much, with a full frequency. So I'll click on frequency to see what I did. We'll just kind of allow it to kind of fade down. That way we can kind of introduce some new sounds in here as that's fading out. Now, remember what I was saying about how cool the drum rack is, because we have this one sound. Let's go ahead and go to the controls and let's give it the random panning so it's all over the place. It's firing everywhere. This is what gives your track dynamics, that things are moving in, other things are moving out. As you listen to music, before you knew how to produce, everything kind of sounds, I hear the drums, I can hear the bass, I can hear these things, but the dynamics of it, you never knew. The soundscaping what really made it that full nasty sounding track is, giving it life from left to right panning, putting stuff with mono. Like, for instance, your kicks always going to be mono, but I do know that the the kicks here in this preset are mono, but we didn't do that for our bass. So let's just listen to the bass real quick. Double click, and we're going to go to create a mono version. What happens with the low ends of your track, which is basically the kick and the bass, those things want to be mono. You don't want to stereo those things because you want to allow higher frequency things like synths, arpeggiations, hi-hats to kind of blossom out in a tree. That's what gives you your soundscape. Kicks, basses in the middle, everything else kind of just moving around. So we're on the bass track, and we're going to go ahead and just double click this here, utility. Now what utility does, it allows you to make it wide. The good news is when you go and put a utility on your track and it doesn't sound any different, we know we're already working with a mono sound. It's a bass sound, so Ableton did the right thing and already put it in bass, in mono mode. So we don't even have to have it on there. We know we're good. Okay. Maybe we'll go back in this DigiKit and see if there's any other sounds we like that we can add. There's a lot of cool little one-shot samples in this thing. Because it's a drum kit, I don't really want to utilize the anything that has tone to it like that with like melody. There's plenty of stuff in Ableton when you go back into your instruments, got an instrument rack open, you can minimize this, you can actually look and see there is sort of mallets, you know, kind of good sounds. We'll work with that one. All right, I want to create a new MIDI track, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's highlighted. Double click, we're going to utilize that sound. Now, this track is equipped with a bell. So instead of using, like, say you like that sound, instead of using that on a drum track, I mean, give it its own track with a mallet. You can manipulate it however you want. I like that. Kind of fun to play. You know, if you play your sounds out, let's at least give that a try. I'm going to show you how to record it right now instead of writing the MIDI. So I'm obviously playing with the keys down here. So what you want to do, if you normally, you know, we have the record button on. If we turn the record button off to a different track, you'll see that it's a square. It's basically just a stop button. But if the record's on, it's a circle. Circles record. You know, shapes, colors, labels, they matter. So instead of creating just like this, you know, and then writing the stuff out and give ourselves a real live experience of recording and just hit this. This is a record button. And for the most part, it's going to have a 1 bar count in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's going to play. So you hear the metronome, and I'm going to play. Record as many times as you want, but I want to at least get this out of the way where I show you how to not have to write MIDI like you're a robot. You can actually play instruments, you know, like you're a musician. So it gives us a real live timing of how we played it. For the most part, it's not on point. But what we can see here, you know, things are, you know, close enough in point to where we can actually do a quantize to move it in the right direction, and the right, everything kind of clipped to the right spots. So, quantize settings, 1/16 should be good. Really, it depends on going into depth with the timing on it. It's going to be hard. If you move something too offbeat and you do 1/8 snap, it's going to move where you don't want it to. It's going to be a little too far one way or another. So we'll stick with 1/16 and we'll apply. Now watch the grid and where the MIDI moves. It's all now sitting on where it should be. Is it correct? We'll have to find out by playing. And we have to set it back to, so we change it to 1/32 so we can get that triple hi-hat in fast. Let's okay. I'm just playing it for one time. I mean, you're not always going to spin gold, the first time. But, if you liked it, you don't want to lose it. You want to do something a little different. You don't want to forget it. All right. Now you just record down to the second scene. Don't have to double click here. Just hit the record button. I think if you double click and you hit the record button here, it'll work. Let's see. Yeah, no. Oh, no dice with that. So you make sure when you want to record into your scenes, just let it count in. And then remember 4 counts, and then you're good. Now, say I want to do something different. I'm just going to wing it here. Something you have, you keep it if you want, whatever, get rid of it. The beauty is it's always changing. You always manipulate it. You never have to stick with that one recording because it's not audio. Audio is so limited, and believe it or not, when you record audio in vocals, guitar, whatever it may be, the processing is a lot larger because the built-in stuff for Ableton, and the beauty of it is the fact that Ableton's already set aside the space, the memory to run all these different sounds in here. And if all you're doing is giving it commands, all these things I'm doing are just commands. Like I said, the music box, the little nipples, that's all it is. What you're seeing here is nothing if it doesn't have a box or a sound connected to it. If it's this important thing about getting to know MIDI is it's like, hey, I'm telling you what to do at a certain point, not, hey, you're a certain sound. Because all you have to do, if I was playing this, but like I was playing here, I want to change the sound. Say I just want to change the sound, just double click. Now I have a different sound.